I was shaking from anger. And I looked down and there was a picture of my girls looking at me with their blonde, beautiful hair, their matching pink dresses, and their smiles looking through the shattered glass. And in that moment, I was taken back to when I was a little girl, and I would hear the plates crashing on the ground when my mom was angry. And I swore I would never be like her, and yet here I was. I just pushed over the bookshelf in my anger and frustration because I didn't know how to manage my emotions. I didn't know how to manage my thoughts. Life felt out of control, and especially my emotions. And in that moment, I made a decision. I made a decision to be better, to do better. You see, I loved my mom dearly, and the anger only came periodically. It was not all the time. But that anger was so explosive, and I never knew when it was going to come. And I was afraid of her. It created a distance between us. And that distance I didn't want to have with my girls. So I made the decision. And I found ways that I could manage my emotions and I could manage my mind. And I want to share some of those with you today. I was praying about what and how to share, because when we read things like taking your thoughts captive, renewing your mind, what does that mean and how do we do it? How can we practically apply some of the scriptures? So I want to share with you today some techniques that I've learned through an acronym, LOVE. I'm going to start with the letter L. What's interesting is that some of us hear our thoughts and some of us see our thoughts. So whether you need to look or listen, it will depend on you. If you're one that needs to see your thoughts, then look at your thoughts. If you need to hear them, then listen to your thoughts. Or maybe you're like me and you do both. And if that's the case, then pay attention. We have approximately 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. That's a lot of thoughts. How many of you can remember your thoughts? We usually don't even pay attention to them. They flash so quickly through our mind and we don't even realize what we're thinking about. But often if our emotions shift, it is because there is something that we are thinking about that's triggering an emotional response. You see, when I was really struggling in that moment in my life, we had lost our home. My kids were really sick. There was so much happening. And those thoughts kept looping through my mind. And I thought, this doesn't work. Gandhi said that our thoughts become our words, and our words become our habits, and our habits become our destiny. And I saw the destiny that I was creating, and it was not the destiny that I want. And the good book says, as a man thinks, he is. So I decided I'm going to dig deep into thoughts. Did you know that we don't only think things for ourselves? We actually have thoughts come into our minds because we're spiritual beings. So thoughts can be our own thoughts, or they can be thoughts from, I like to say, the enemy, or from love or God. And how do you know when those thoughts pop up, which one it's from? That's a great question. I promise you that if it's from God, it's always going to end with love. It's always going to lead you to love. It's always going to lead you to joy and to a higher purpose, always. And if it's from the enemy can think so much like us, but likes to pull us off direction. So if I listen and I look at my thoughts, I know that I'm thinking in a direction that doesn't work. And sometimes they're my own thoughts. And they don't always work either, but sometimes they do. And I've learned how to capture my thoughts. And I want to show you how. So you have to start by listening and looking at your thoughts. You have to know what your thoughts are. So then we move to the next letter, O, observe. Observe your thoughts. Now, observing is a little bit different than just listening and looking at them. I like to think of being a scientist. So you take out a journal and you write down a log of your thoughts. And as you write down a log, you will start to see certain threads. Those threads create loops. And those loops create our words. And of all the ways that God chose to start things, He spoke. And we're made in the image. So our words create. Our thoughts create. So if we don't manage them, then we can see in our life what we've created. So when we listen and look at our thoughts, we move to the O to observe them, and we're writing them down, and we start to see patterns. If you want to dig deeper into this, check out Dr. Carolina Leaf. She is brilliant at sharing and how your brain works and going deeper into the science. So for those of you who like to geek out on science, check her out because it's amazing. And one of the things that's amazing about what she teaches, we actually got brain scans of our girls because we were exposed to a neurotoxin, and you can actually see the loops. You can actually see where the neurons were functioning and firing. And so I love how science always backs up scripture, always. It's fascinating to me. But as you're observing your thoughts, as you're really digging deep into them, you'll start to see threads. You'll start to see patterns. One of my friends recently said to me that he didn't feel like he had enough money, and he was really frustrated, and his life was just seemingly out of control. And I've shared the love method with him and shared with him how to manage his thoughts. And I said, well, what have you been thinking about? And he goes, well, I've been thinking about how I'm going to pay the rent. And I said, interesting. What else have you been thinking about? And he started to share the patterns, and all of those patterns were coming together of not having enough money. Our brains are amazing, and they will do everything they can to get us to do whatever it is that we're thinking about. Because as a man thinks, he is. And so I invited him to observe them, and then we go to V, voice. But when you voice the thoughts, I want you to start with the story I'm telling myself. Because remember, our brains will take us in a direction. And if we start with the story I'm telling myself, then we give our brains room to wiggle. It's a story. It doesn't mean it's true. It's a story. And how many stories are we telling ourselves? I used to tell myself a lot of stories. And some of them were amazing stories, and some of them were not so great of stories. But when I started to really focus on them, I could capture those thoughts that didn't work, and I could stop that thought pattern. And then when I voiced it with the story I'm telling myself and shifted it to something that was different, it's a story. And if we create with our words, because we're made like the Creator, we're made in the image of the Creator, then we can shift with our words. But our words come from our thoughts. As a man thinks, he is. And so, if we go forward with the voice and we voice it, also when we voice it, all of a sudden we're like, I'm not really thinking that, am I? But we are. And it usually is something that continues over and over and over and over again until it creates that loop, like the little cassette tapes from a long time ago. And they play the same thing over and over and over again. But we can stop that loop and we can shift it, which takes me to the letter E, elevate. We can elevate our thinking. The Bible talks about thinking on what is good, what is real, what is of good report. Think on such things. With the world happening the way it is right now, it is really challenging to think about positive things. We're inundated everywhere we go with challenges, with disconnection. And you know, no matter what, we all want to belong. We all want to fit in. We all want to be loved. That's our innate need. And when we elevate our thinking, we will automatically love. We will automatically see the best in one another. When we elevate our thinking, we will shift not only our destiny, but those around us. And so as we elevate our thinking, we can take it, and I love Les Brown. Les Brown talks about possibility, and anything is possible if we believe it. So if you're having something like the story my friend was telling himself, not having enough money, well, you can elevate your thinking by saying, well, it's possible for me to have money. It's possible that I could find money right here. It's possible. And as we start to speak that out, we will shift the way we think. We will shift the way that we perceive the world. And when we think on what is good and what is right of one another, we, just whoever is hearing this, can change the world. We can change the culture. We can love people. You know, one of the things that's really hard for me is I see individuals who part of the LGBT community or other different communities that are unloved because of something so small, something so simple. And we've created this disconnect in this culture where we don't see each other. Now, I'm not asking you to walk in somebody else's shoes because we can't. And we think that we can, and we try. But it doesn't work because our perception is not their perception. But if we ask, if we simply ask, then we can truly connect. And as we connect, we can elevate our thinking. So the L is for listen or look. The O is for observe. The V is for voice, but starting with the story I'm telling myself. And the E is for elevate. My mama went to be with the Lord a few years ago, and I had the ability to learn to love her, even though we had that disconnection. But a couple weeks ago, my 26-year-old daughter told me on her birthday that she had been afraid of me for all those years. That there were times that she was really afraid of me. And she missed the fun part of me, even though that's the majority of who I am. She said, I watched you change. I watched you do something different. How did you do it? And I shared with her about managing my mind and thinking on what is good and what is right. And my daughter said, I want to be so much closer to you. I want to spend so much time with you. I want to do the crazy fun things that you've always done with all of my friends, with my sister and with those around. She said, I'm actually a whole lot like you. And I said, yeah, and I was a whole lot like my mama. And you're starting off a lot younger than me. She's creative and amazing. I have 2 miracle babies, because as a man thinks, so they are. I was told by the doctors it was impossible for me to have children. And I said, you're not God. And I had several miscarriages. And then I got pregnant with Elizabeth. And when I did, my rainbow baby, every time that I spotted or things went wrong, there was a rainbow to remind me that it's possible. It's possible. Whatever it is that you're up against, it may not be that for you, but whatever it is, it's possible. And if you use this simple method, you can shift your destiny. You can shift the people around you. And I wasn't just blessed with 1, but I was blessed with 2 miracle babies. The doctor said I should go play the lottery because he's never seen anything like it. And I'm like, I just won. And now, as they're young adults, seeing who they are and what they've done, I thought I was going to be the most amazing parent. And yet, I did the best I could. And I know that you all are doing the best that you can. We all are. It's how we're designed. But sometimes we just need some tools. I would love to connect deeper with the tools. If the love method, I would love to hear as you share it with others. Share it with everyone around you so that we collectively together can change the way we think. That we collectively together can change the connections, the deep relationships, to truly love one another and to make a difference. And for all you mamas out there who struggle with that anger and frustration, I get you. And when we don't learn to manage our emotions, we can lose connection and relationship and have shattered and broken relationships. But it's not too late. Today, I'm giving you permission. I'm giving you permission right now to shift. I'm giving you permission to notice your thoughts, to listen and look at them, to observe them, to voice them, and to elevate them. Because what's love got to do with it? Absolutely everything.